Somewhere between Once Upon a Time and They Lived Happily Ever After, our favorite fairy tales have a way of not only entertaining us with tales of beautiful heroines, magical forests, and enchanting creatures, but also have a way of teaching us some important life lessons along the way. Though they may not be expressly stated, the idea that these stories, passed down from generation to generation, contain morals is not all that unusual. The first tales of this nature were written specifically to teach lessons to readers. Since then, fairy tales have spawned many variations, but still manage to convey important messages about how to live and love, how to treat others, and how the world works. Let's take a look at a few of the countless examples of morals available inside of fairy tales. From Little Red Riding Hood to Cinderella, fairy tales present some unique learning opportunities for readers. Here are some morals or life lessons that can be taken from a few popular fairy tales. Little Red Riding Hood is the story of a young girl who encounters danger on her way through the woods to visit her grandmother. It's a classic tale repeated in various cultures throughout history. As readers, we can almost anticipate Red Riding Hood's fate when she first meets the wolf in the woods, even though the wolf is on his best behavior. In fact, the wolf's kind appearance teaches us a lesson in itself. Be careful who you trust, especially people who appear to be overly kind at first. The Three Little Pigs is the tale of three little pigs who are sent out into the world to make their own way. Unfortunately, two of the three pigs take shortcuts and build their houses out of weak materials, which is easy for the enemy to breach. The lesson here is laziness may be fun for a season, but it will eventually catch up with you. Another good lesson here is that taking shortcuts can seem like a good idea at first, but can ultimately lead to disaster. A third moral, if you're really looking, could be that it's important to build on a steady foundation in life. The Princess and the Pea is about a queen who's on the hunt for a princess to marry her son, when she stumbles across a rather unprincess-like maiden with messy hair and clothes. To test her, the maiden is invited to spend the night in the castle, where the queen hides a pea under her mattress. Only a princess would be able to feel such a small level of discomfort. The next morning, the maiden complains about her poor night of sleep, and the queen has found her son's wife. This story tells one of the oldest lessons of all time. Don't judge a book by its cover, or a person by their initial appearance. People are more than their hairstyle and clothing. The Elves and the Shoemaker is a tale about a band of elves who decide to pitch in and help out a poor shoemaker down on his luck. For several nights, the elves craft shoes to keep the shoemaker in business. After the shoemaker and his wife catch sight of the little naked elves working, they decide to sew some clothes for their secret helpers. The lesson here is do things for others without any thought of getting something in return. The elves worked for the shoemaker with no thought other than to be helpful. Beauty and the Beast is another classic fairy tale full of morals. Early in this story, when we meet Belle, we discover she's not the type of girl focused on wealth or looks, but favors intelligence and substance. Belle is drawn into a relationship with the Beast, not your typical-looking suitor, for his substance and smarts. She is rewarded in the end when the spell placed on him is broken and a handsome prince is revealed. As stated, this story is packed with life lessons, such as the importance of valuing intelligence, being willing to accept people's differences, and being kind to all types of people and things. Jack and the Beanstalk is another well-known fairy tale with a timeless message. Under his mother's instruction, Jack sets off to sell the family's cow and instead trades it for a handful of magic beans. Jack's mother, furious with his silly trade, throws the beans out the window and sends Jack to bed. The next morning, a giant beanstalk has sprouted, which Jack climbs to find immeasurable wealth. Jack's actions, trading the cow for the magic beans, has an element of risk to it, to be certain. But without him taking advantage of the opportunity presented to him, he would have never found the wealth at the top of the beanstalk. The Selfish Giant is a story about how the title character behaves really poorly with his garden, refusing to allow the local children to play there. As a result, the garden itself suffers, and the giant feels despair and sadness. Once the children return, the giant is happy, and the garden resumes blooming. The lesson here is, when you set aside selfish motives and work toward making other people happy, it can have positive benefits for everyone. Cinderella is the tale of the title character being treated poorly, but she gets her moment in the sun to attend a ball before returning to her difficult life under her evil stepmother. This fairy tale reminds us that being kind, regardless of our situation, is important. Let's recap. The idea of morals, or life lessons, being present in fairy tales has been around as long as stories have been told. Today, fairy tales can offer readers a new perspective on life, love, relationships, society, and more. In classic stories like Little Red Riding Hood, we learn to be careful who we trust, and in stories like Cinderella, we're reminded to be kind in every situation.